Russell Brand has officially been charged with rape and sexual assault. And I want to be clear that I'm not here to render a verdict of guilty or innocent, but this does explain some things. So Brand is being accused of sexual assault and rape from cases varying from 1999 to 2005. And I want to be fair to him. He's already put out a video claiming his innocence and saying that he's merely being targeted by the government and that he's never raped or committed any act that wasn't consensual in nature in his life.
We're very fortunate in a way to live in a time where there's so little trust in the British government. We're very fortunate, I suppose, that this is happening at a time where we know that the law has become a kind of weapon to be used against people, institutions, and sometimes entire nations that will not accept and tolerate levels of corruption that are unprecedented. I'm speaking particularly to those of you that are watching this in the UK. I was a fool, man. I was a fool before I lived in the light of the Lord. I was a drug addict, a sex addict, and an imbecile. But what I never was a rapist. I've never engaged in non-consensual activity. I pray that you can see that by looking in my eyes.
Now, without a presumption of guilt or innocence, I will say, Russ, you look a little bit suspect, because I know I'm not the only one that noticed the shift in your grift since 2023 when this investigation was announced. See, before 2023, Russell Brand, for all intents and purposes, would have probably been considered an anti-war leftist who was known to call out the corruption in both the United States and the UK government. And wrapped inside of his message of being pro-peace and anti-big government was a theme of spirituality that a lot of leftists resonated with at one point. So you can imagine our surprise whenever out of nowhere in April 2024, after all of this investigation stuff started, the man gets baptized in front of the whole world and all of a sudden starts thumping his Bible harder than whoever it is Lindsey Graham is thumping in the closet. Not that there's anything wrong with being a Christian, but it's a little bit strange that you decide to become a whole ass evangelical Christian right after these investigations started. And maybe if it was just the Christianity, no one would find it suspicious. But then came the right-wing MAGA-like shift, as if he was trying to cultivate a base, a new base, to defend him. A base that, quite frankly, is known for being hypocritical in defending the very types of people they would attack if those people were liberals for committing certain acts like what Russell Brand is being accused of committing. And to ensure that that base would be loyal to him when the time came, he went from calling out all government corruption and all pro-war propaganda to, yeah, I could call out the war in Ukraine, but the genocide Israel's committing, I think I'm gonna be a little bit quiet about that. He had no problem calling out everything that Joe Biden did, rightfully so, but the corruption that Trump and Elon Musk are engaging in, mum's the word. In fact, one could argue that Russell Brand spends an inordinate amount of time and energy looking for ways to defend Donald Trump and Elon Musk, even when it's not appropriate to do so. And on top of that, he's even been obfuscating on the issue of Israel and has refused to not only call the genocide, but even the involvement of their overthrow of the Syrian government and their current presence there, despite the fact that, once again, Russell Brand in the past was known for calling out this type of hawkish behavior. Hell, in the video where he's declaring his innocence, he even tries to tap into the xenophobia of his white evangelical base by trying to bring up the Southport murders, where they claimed a Muslim immigrant killed 3 young girls, when in actuality, it was a British Christian. Once again, all these shifts started late 2023, early 2024. And his loyalty to the MAGA base and his fealty to Zionists in Israel seem to be paying off, because look at them, they're already defending him. Here's Cat Turd talking about, I know nothing about this, if it's true or not, but when a famous liberal actor turns into a famous Christian conservative podcaster and suddenly gets these kinds of charges from 20 years ago, it automatically seems suspicious. Once again, forgetting how suspicious it is that the timeline of him becoming a Christian conservative lines up perfectly with him getting investigated for these charges. Here's Charlie Kirk. Every single allegation against Russell Brand concerns events that took place 20 years ago or more. None of them existed while he was a famous actor or comedian. All of them emerged once he became a highly visible dissident on politics and COVID. He even goes on to say that Brand has been forthright about his behavior, which is true. But the idea that he was a serial rapist is absurd and, more importantly, unprovable. This is political persecution, plain and simple. Now, just out of curiosity, Charlie, question for you. Is the possibility absurd now because he's a Zionist, Bible-thumping, evangelical, MAGA, conservative, Trump loyalist? Or would the mere possibility had been just as absurd if he was a liberal or continued to remain an anti-war leftist? I think we all know the answer to that question. But like I said, I'm not like Charlie. I'm not here to render a verdict of guilty or innocent, but I am here to say that given that your transformation seems to align perfectly with these accusations, it makes it hard to believe anything you say, even your own declaration of guilty or innocence. So you can baptize as many people in your tidy-whities as you want to, but the fact that you have made such an insane ideological shift right around the time it was most convenient for your quote-unquote brand means that at the bare minimum, you're disingenuous. And in my opinion, that means we can't believe anything that comes out of your mouth going forward. And as far as the optics are concerned, MAGA conservatives, I'd be careful trying to come out and outright defend a man who y'all know was out there partying with Daddy Diddy. I'm just saying, I'm not assuming guilt, but I damn sure ain't betting on innocence given the information we got. I'm just saying.